Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and I'm going to show you a couple of our favorite tea blends for when things are going through the house. Let's get into it. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do, vegan prepper. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, vegan prepper. Well, I currently have, and it's so funny. It's like this version of it seems so polite because a couple of weeks ago, Elliot got it. And then basically as soon as he got over it, Adam got it. And then as soon as Adam got over it, I got it. So it's almost like it's just like letting people get over it and then hitting the next person. So like I said, in a way it seems almost polite, but what are some of the main teas that I have been brewing for people to help the recovery process? And I think it really does help. So like I currently have it. So I'm getting ready to make myself a jar of my Berry Beneficial blend, and let me go ahead and show you what that is. Here is the jar I typically keep this in, and I have the recipe on the side if you're interested. And so yeah, this is one that I came up with. I think it's absolutely delicious. Adam doesn't like it, but he doesn't like elderberries. But anyway, it's delicious. It ends up tasting like a juice. There's been actually a few times I've added a little bit of cinnamon chips, and that makes it taste even better. Like a mulled juice or something. It's so delicious, but this one's really great. Usually at least a quart a day whenever anybody's dealing with anything. And I've got my jar here ready to brew with 1 tablespoon of the tea already in there. But I just, I ran out, so I need to make more. But basically I have my stuff here. So it's 1 part elderberry, 1 part rose hips, 2 parts nettles. And I'm just going to go ahead and get that together. I think I'm actually just going to show you what it looks like in the bowl. Sorry for super low production quality, but I'm basically doing fine, but I am a bit weak and I'm sort of tired, and I don't want to set up the whole tripod, but I'll still show you my tea blend. What's the snickering going on over here?
Just listening to you say you sometimes put cinnamon in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, just make it taste even worse.
Such a punk. Typically when I am mixing up my tea blends, I do end up doing it in a bowl. Although sometimes you can do it in a jar, but I find especially if you want to actually fill the jar, that doing it in a bowl is a bit better. Because obviously if the jar is full, then you can't really shake it very well, and then you don't get as good of a mixture. So I tend to mix in a bowl and then pour into the jar. Like I said, especially if I want a full jar. And it's weird. It's like, I know that this jar will hold roughly 2 cups, but somehow it doesn't ever seem to hold quite that much. So I just sort of used, like you saw, but I didn't show you how I was scooping. I used the, a 1/4 cup as my 1 part. So it was 1 scoop of each of these and then 2 scoops of this. But I'm going to go ahead and finish getting this mixed up and then get it into the jar, and we'll see if I need to make any more at that point. That first batch looks like it pretty much filled the jar halfway exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this mixed up and put it in there, and then I'll have another full jar of tea, and I'll get this brewing. I'll show you guys what it looks like, or how I'll tell you how I brew it and then show you what it looks like at the end. I always think mixed up teas look so pretty. They're just like, I don't know. It makes me feel happy. That is basically a perfectly full little jar of tea. And so I wonder how long this is going to last. This is the second time I filled it since we've had sickness going through the house. We just use it, and it really does seem to help speed recovery. I know I can't really make claims. I definitely don't say it's like a cure for anything, but my gosh, it just seems to help so much. So let me tell you exactly how I brew a medicinal strength infusion. So typically a medicinal strength is about a tablespoon of tea per cup. So I use a quart-sized jar, and I tend to fill it to roughly here which is closer to 3.5 cups, because a quart jar is only a quart if you go all the way up to the absolute very top. That's where it measures at a quart. So typically, if you're drinking out of it or brewing or doing anything in the jar, you're almost never actually getting a quart. So I tend to do 3 tablespoons in a jar and not 4, because we're getting closer to 3 cups, especially by the time you count for the displacement of the tea itself and the tea strainer. I like to use just a tea strainer. This came in a teapot, but you can purchase other versions of it. Here, let me just get over here. You can purchase it. Actually, that tea strainer came in this teapot. This is one I had gotten off of Amazon. And so you just look for like in mug infusers. This is my like tea strainer of choice, basically. Although I do appreciate this one more, even with the holes, the bigger holes, because it's so much bigger. I feel like the tea moves around more and it brews better than the other one. That's just my personal opinion. For pretty much everybody else in my family, they use the other one because they can't stand the larger chunks. To me, it's not that big of a deal. If you drink really slow at the end, it stays in the jar and it's not that big of a deal. So I will put 3 tablespoons of tea in here. There's already 1 tablespoon from the last batch. And then I will get boiling water over the top and let this sit for at least 45 minutes. For, again, that medicinal strength, you're using a tablespoon of tea per cup, and you're letting it sit for at least 45 minutes to even, maybe an hour. And so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do with this.
Hi.
Hi, Superman. Do you want some tea? Okay.
I just have kombucha.
Oh, you have kombucha? Okay. All right, here we got our boiled water. It's gonna go over top. And you'll see the color change when I show you after about 45 minutes to an hour have passed. But it's already pretty dark, although that's more of a nettle color, right? But yeah, just wait until you see after it's already brewed. Okay, so just make sure that everything is nice and soaked with the boiling water to make sure it gets well brewed. And then we'll cover it. And yeah, again, 45 minutes to an hour. There is always a bowl like this too when we're brewing tons of tea in the house. And so all of the tea just gets scooped out of the little bucket infuser things and just goes straight into this bowl. And then periodically I just go and put the leftover tea around the base of my plants outside. And they seem to really love it. So definitely don't throw this away. All right, I want to talk to you briefly about bags versus this style of tea infuser. And I know many people prefer these bags, and that's fine. If you like the bags, then go right ahead. I personally just use these because I find them so much easier to clean. And like I just showed you my bowl of empty tea, it's so much easier to scoop that out with a spoon and throw it into the bowl versus trying to like turn this inside out and get it all out of the bag. And then you have to go through rinsing and washing the bag. And I feel like this, you can just sort of run under water and it ends up being a lot faster than these reusable cotton bags. And so that is why for me personally, I really prefer these strainers, even though they let more tea through than these do. Now, if little bits of extra tea leaves are just a complete deal breaker for you, then obviously use the bags and do your thing. That is the reason for me personally, just some of the reasons. I'm sure there's more, but like, I can't think of it right now. I'm just tired. So I can't think of it right now, but those are the main things that come to mind. I also personally feel that, again, inside of the kind of basket or bucket tea strainer, that the leaves are able to move a bit more in the water. And I feel like the infusions are stronger as a result. I don't know if that's true. It's just for me personally, I feel like the tea comes out stronger when I use these styles versus the bags. So one advantage of these though especially like for, you know, if you have sickness going through the house, is that you can potentially pre-fill a bunch of these and then just have them ready to go. But one time I did a jar video and I showed that I pre-made a bunch of tea jars and that works out so well. So basically you can put all of the loose tea in the base of your jar, just like line up 10 quart jars or whatever, put all of the tea in, and then basically when you go to brew your tea, just take the jar and dump it upside down into one of these and then stick it right back in the jar, pour your boiling water over top, and you know, you're golden. So I don't necessarily know that you have to do this. I have obviously figured out my workarounds because these are not my favorite, but Adam really likes these, so we do have them around because he likes to use these because he really hates the tea leaves in the tea. So everybody has their thing that they like or can handle or cannot handle or whatever. So, you know, you do you, but this is just my preference. But then this is Adam's preference, but then he doesn't like elderberries. So I don't know why we're listening to him. All right, I'm back to shivering. So Adam's gonna show you the tea.
Here's the tea all complete. Consider yourselves lucky that you cannot smell it, but it darkens up pretty nicely.
All right, and here are two more blends for you guys. So this is in our house now, actually last year, when COVID went through our house, Adam ended up labeling this tea. So it's commonly known as the Gypsy tea or Gypsy cold care remedy tea. Some people will label it as Wanderer tea, but basically it's the classic recipe. It's very old. This recipe doesn't belong to anybody. It's just equal parts yarrow, elderflower, and peppermint. So 1 part yarrow, 1 part elderflower, 1 part peppermint. And that's what that blend is. So in our house now it's cold Nomo tea is what we call it. So yes, that's that blend. And then this is another one that I made that I just absolutely love. And I called it Lamender Lavalme because it reminds me of something that Hermione Granger would say. It's just like, I'm such a dork. But yeah, I can totally hear her being like, it's not Lamender Lavalme, it's Lamender Lavalme. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so tired. But yeah, it's basically just 4 parts lemon balm, 1 part lavender. This one, primarily because of the lavender, you don't want to brew it for much more than 10 minutes. The lavender can end up getting really bitter when you brew it for too long, but it still ends up being really nice. Lemon balm is a nice, gentle antiviral, as well as a relaxant, and it helps de-stress. And then lavender as well. And then there's just so many wonderful properties to the yarrow and the peppermint and the elderflower. This one's really great, although this one will definitely make you go to the bathroom and it will probably make you sweat. But it's good. It's excellent for when you have any kind of sickness. So for this tea, the Gypsy Cold Care Remedy, or the Cold Nomo tea, it's the same process as the previous tea. It's a tablespoon per cup. So I just do 3 tablespoons into a tea strainer. And then actually this one ends up being my exception. I do like to use the smaller hold infuser for this one because it is so small. So many of the pieces in here are so small and you end up with just a ton of leaves in the bottom, which is not a huge deal, but you know, I like to just use this one. One thing I will mention about this one, kind of like with the Lamender Lavalme with the lavender, don't let this one brew much longer than 45 minutes to an hour. There's something in there, and I think it's the yarrow, that will become extremely bitter. So it's not like this one, which you can only do for about 10 minutes. This one, just don't go much longer than that. If it gets cold, don't reheat it because it'll make it really bitter again. So just brew it and just try to get to it when it's done, and you'll have yourself a good tea. Another thing I would like to mention specifically when dealing with COVID, and again, I'm trying to be careful. I'm not trying to offer, cures or anything, but these things have been extremely supportive to our family as we've had it, in our house, and it helps aid in recovery. But one of the things that is known now about COVID that didn't used to be really widely known or understood is that it tends to be something that can affect the blood clotting in the body. And so people can end up with clots after they have COVID. And actually that is what happened to me last year after I had COVID. Well, I was also working really hard. I was sitting stationary at my desk, getting stuff together for a big charity show that I do in December where I give a bunch of jewelry pieces away, and I was working nonstop sitting in one position. So I think that could have been part of it as well, but I ended up with a small superficial clot in my leg after I had COVID last year. And so that is definitely something that I am keeping in mind, especially for this time. So I wanted to offer thoughts on that. And specifically with the cold Nomo tea, because it's got yarrow in it. So the peppermint, yarrow, elderflower are wonderful, but specifically for COVID, I think yarrow as a tea could end up being a really helpful thing, because weirdly enough, plants are so amazing, and the way that they've been designed to work in our bodies, that yarrow on a wound outside of your body will almost immediately coagulate your blood. It's kind of, or it'll stop bleeding. It's an incredibly styptic herb, which is just an incredible thing to have in any first aid kit. I've seen it myself, with a pretty deep cut. I put yarrow tincture on it, which was not pleasant, but the bleeding stopped almost instantaneously. It's kind of an incredible thing. So it stops bleeding outside of the body, but when you take it as a tea, interestingly enough, it seems to prevent clotting in the body. It helps to support the free flow of blood in your veins, and strengthens your veins and all of that. And also, again, kind of keeps your blood from clotting. So definitely, I'm going to be making sure that I'm drinking more yarrow as we're moving through the progression of the sickness. And so this is going to be, I think, my second quart for today of this particular tea. And then I'm going to definitely keep drinking it probably for a few days after I stop having any symptoms, and have maybe at least 1 quart a day, get some of that yarrow into me to hopefully prevent any kind of clotting this time around. But like I said, last time I was sitting pretty stationary. And so this time too, I am making it a point to move my legs and get up and move around and try to make sure that does not happen again. So anyway, it's just a thought specifically for COVID with yarrow. And again, this is just that thoughts, right? We don't know. There's not really a lot of herbal protocols out there yet for COVID. I think it's just too new for everyone, right? But that is just sort of knowing what I know about the herbs, and knowing now what I know about COVID. I'm seeing that could potentially be a very helpful thing theoretically. I don't know, but I don't, it's not going to hurt anything. So anyway. All right, 45 minutes on the timer for the cold Nomo tea, because we don't want it to go much longer than that. All right, sorry for the kind of random and not very well put together video, but hopefully the information is still good and it proves helpful to any of you. And I guess that's going to be it for me. Just going to keep doing the things that I know to do and just rest and recuperate. And hopefully this thing is done going through our family at this point. So anyway, I guess that's all. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye.